All right, guys, if you got a factory original steering box in your 55, 56, 57 Chevy car, I'm going to show you an adjustment on here because a lot of guys may not know this, but there is an adjustment on this box. If you've got some slack in your steering, like you're driving down the highway and your steering wheel's got a lot of this in it, and you know your tie rods and your idler and bushings and all that stuff is tight, this could actually work. A lot of guys will think they need to rebuild their steering box. And all you really need to do is do an adjustment right here on this. So what you'll do is you'll put a flat blade screwdriver in this slot right here, and you'll hold on to it, and then you'll knock that nut loose. I usually will turn it, a full turn or 2 turns loose, but don't turn that yet. And then once you get the nut broke off or loose, take your flat blade screwdriver and turn it clockwise a 1/4 turn at a time. And what I like to do is I like to take it out and drive it and see how it does. Take your tools with you, that way you can pull off the side of the road or something, and then give it another 1/4 turn if it's didn't do much. But anyway, you can really dial that in. Now, I've had these before that you have to go a full turn in before it ever worked, but you can get that too tight. And what happens is you'll go to turn, like these old steering boxes, the ratio is pretty bad in them. You turn your steering wheel like 20 times before you can pull into a parking spot. But you'll notice as you're turning, the steering kind of feels tight, and then it loosens, and then it gets tight, and then it loosens. You need to back that back off a 1/4 turn. You got it too tight. But anyway, this is another trick that I do if I go out hunting for steering boxes at a salvage or whatever. And if you're doing the same thing, there's something you can look at to see if that box is okay. Or, well, you got a good shot that it's a pretty good box. It still may need rebuilt, but that set nut or set screw down in there, if that is sticking up out of the top of that nut, that would be the one I got. You'll see these a lot that they're flush, like mine is flush right now, but the nut I have on mine is actually thicker because this is a custom nut. But anyway, if it's flush, and sometimes I've seen them like halfway down in the nut, those are the ones I pass up. You want to find the ones that the stud is actually sticking up out of that nut. That means that nobody's kind of tinkered with it through the years. The ones that are way down in there, people's adjusted and adjusted, trying to get the slack out, and the box is probably ready for a rebuild at that point. But anyway, if you've got a little slack, just loosen off the nut and turn this a 1/4 turn at a time. But I have had to take them a full turn before. But anyway, that's just what I do. Now, if you want to detail yours like mine, it's real simple. I used a wire wheel. Of course, I had the box off the car. I did a wire wheel and a drill, cordless drill, and I just went in there and just really got after it and cleaned it up real good. I got it really nice, clean metal. Then I used a wax and grease remover to remove all the oils and grease. And then at that point, I used Duplicolor engine spray paint. It's the engine enamel, I think they call it. I like to use those. If I'm going to use an aerosol, I like to use that Duplicolor engine enamel because that stuff will resist a lot of chemicals, and it'll take a lot of heat, especially with a header right beside it. But don't just put one coat on it. Make sure you put a couple of coats on. But put a coat on, let it kind of kick off a little bit, and then put another one on. But anyway, what I do, I'll take the bolts out, I'll take the nut off, and I'll take the plug out. And then I'll go through and I'll take, this is aluminum, the color of Duplicolor spray paint. It's just called aluminum. It's like a matte or a satin finish. And I'll spray this top plate. I don't mask off the box. I just let the overspray go on the box. And then I'll let that set a couple hours, and then I'll take masking tape and go all around the side of that, right up to it real easy. Pay attention as you're taping off, because your paint job's only as good as your masking job. But anyway, I'll mask off this top plate. And then at that point, I'll use cast iron gray Duplicolor engine paint, and I'll spray the whole box. Now, make sure you get up the shaft of it here pretty good, because your steering column doesn't go all the way to the end. You have a little spring and a felt washer that goes on there. So anyway, be sure you at least get some of this up there, at least about 4 or 5 inches or 6 inches or whatever. But anyway, if you want to change the hardware out in that, this is the 3 bolts that I'm using are ARP 12-point stainless steels. These are 3/8 by 16 thread. I don't remember what the length is. But if you have to measure for bolts, like if you're going to buy them offline, take one of your bolts out and measure it. Now when you measure a bolt, you measure underhead length. You don't measure end of the bolt to the other end of the bolt. They always want to know your underhead is where you put your measuring at, from underhead to the end of the bolt. But I want to say they're 1 inch maybe, or 3/4, I don't remember. But anyway, 3/8 by 16 on the 3 bolts. The nut here, which I just got a chrome plated one from my local hardware store out of the chrome bin. This is a 7/16 by 20 fine thread. And if you want to change your plug out, which there's many different plugs on the market to choose from, I went with brass because it's, you know, another color on here, so it just gives it more detail. This is 3/8 NPT, which is National Pipe Thread. There's lots of plugs to choose from. I got a few here. There's a stainless steel Allen. Here's a black anodized Allen, and then here's an aluminum hex cap, which you can get anodized colors. I did find some 12-point stainless steel ones, which I have 12-point ARPs and everything, and I was like, oh, that's the one I want, but they didn't have it in 3/8. All they had was 1/2 inch, so I was kind of bummed out about it. But that one plug was like 15 bucks or something stupid anyway, so this is just stuff that I had laying around here. Besides the nut, I did have to go to the hardware store to get it, but anyway, it's just a nice detail on the box. Instead of, you know, painting the whole damn thing one color, it looks like you painted it with one color, but when you break up stuff with different colors, it gives detail. But I mean, that box right there looks like it's brand new, you know, or rebuilt or something. And it was just a little bit of a cleanup, a wipe down, and a spray paint job with some new hardware. So anyway, don't forget, you can adjust these to get some slack out of your steering. But if your idler arm has slack in it, or your tie rods, you know, you need to fix that stuff first. But if you suspect your steering box is loose, what I like to do, if your steering column is not in here, you can grab hold of it right here and you can turn it back and forth. Put your other hand on the drag link and, you know, see if that thing's moving when you turn it. If the column is still attached to it, have a buddy kind of move the wheel real easy back and forth. Hold your hand on the pitman down there and see if it's moving. But I like to do it as driving it. I do a 1/4 turn, I'll take it out and drive it, and then I'll do another 1/4 turn, and I'll pretty much take it until it, you know, I'm comfortable with it. But most of the time I do have to back it back off because you'll feel it get a little bit too tight. But anyway, just an easy, simple adjustment. Hope it helps some of you guys out. You know, you don't have to spend the money to get a rebuilt box or try to rebuild it yourself, which I have no experience in rebuilding these boxes. Might be something I would try later, but I do have several around here that are good used ones because I've always kind of hoarded them a little bit. But for me, I'll just tighten up a good used original one and roll with it. But anyway, hope it helps some of you guys out. Like, share, subscribe, tag, follow, and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching.